Hey everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of Codex City, and today we're going to be building the ore industry and the Railyard, which is going to be connected to the cargo station, which will handle all the import and export from the city. To begin with, the process is exactly the same as last time. I placed the main building of the ore industry, then I placed the maintenance buildings and the workers' barracks. So I just like stealing the previous buildings which I've made and put it on other places in the city. I think the most satisfying thing in City Skylines till now is when you have large areas and you have to just surface painter all of it. That's just like the best part, the easiest and the most satisfying part of the game. Just to keep the ore industry touch, I chose to leave a bit of gravel over there so that, it looks like an ore industry, because ore usually has a lot of open grounds and mud and all that. So continuing the small tutorial I was doing in the last episode, the ore industry also is pretty similar to the oil industry. It has the extractor buildings, the processing buildings, and there are a few storage buildings in it too. So the ore industry has actually 6 extractor buildings. Those are namely the small, medium and large ore mines, and there are these underground ore mines which come only in small and large. These are 5 of these, and there is a seabed mining vessel which can be only placed on shores. So just like the oil industry, there are 4 processing buildings in the ore industry as well. They are the rotary kiln plant, the glass manufacturing plant, the fiberglass plant and the ore grinding mill. And just like the oil industry, this also produces 2 things, that is glass and metals. I have actually repeated most of the process which I had used while building the oil industry in the previous episode, and like the previous episode I have placed almost 6 buildings of each processing type, and now you can see that I am placing a few large footprint buildings. These are actually the unique factories which are there on a separate tab in the industries panel. These unique factories actually use a combination of the goods which are produced in the different industrial areas. For example, the oil refinery on the screen right now actually uses the oil or the petroleum from the oil industry and uses metal from the ore industry to form more unique goods. Now this is the part where we actually start building the Railyard, and I've taken more time to build the Railyard because I wanted to be a bit more detailed, because Railyard is actually a pretty big structure in the city and it is visible from a very far distance. and it should look very good when we can see it from a far view. I had actually allocated the place to build the Railyard long time before I actually started the project, as I wanted it to be pretty big and it should be pretty well defined. As you might have seen American Railyards, they are pretty huge and they have a lot of space. So Beastquackle has a pretty amazing tutorial on making good looking American Railyards on the City Skylines official channel. If you want, you guys can head out there right now and actually watch that video, or what I can do is I will leave the link in the description. The line which you saw me build first was the main line, which will actually go through the yard undiverted and will have high speed limits on it. The diagonal track which you saw me build is actually called the yard ladder. This is usually a diagonal track itself, but sometimes it has a very gentle curve, but I have given it a much more sharper curve because it is big, but I don't want it to take so much place either. The tracks I'm building right now are the yard tracks. These are the tracks which are very closely placed next to each other and take up most of the rail yard. These are the tracks which I'll also be connecting my freight terminals to. I initially placed only one of those freight terminals, but I felt that for such a big industry, one would actually be less, and I decided to put two of them to serve the industrial area. I decided that not all the tracks in the yard tracks should actually be a pass-through track. I decided to make some of them actually a dead-end track, which would be connected to a crane, which I'll be building later. But most of the tracks are joint on both the ends and are pass-through tracks. When I placed the base prop of the crane, I was actually pretty impressed because the crane fit exactly between those two tracks and it fit very well. These yard tracks are mostly gonna remain empty except for the one which is actually connected to the freight terminal. And to fill up these yard tracks, I used a few train car props because we need to fill all these tracks, because the yard tracks usually are filled with all these freight cars. So I've added a few of those I don't know what it's called exactly. Those are the container packs by Avania, I think, and these are a pretty interesting bunch of containers actually. And I've added these here because I not only want it to be a normal freight yard but also an intermodal yard. For the people who don't know what an intermodal yard is, it is actually a yard where these containers are actually picked up from the train trailers and put it onto the truck trailers and vice versa. At this stage of the build, I realized that I don't have enough variety of railcar props to place in the yard, so I decided to stop the game right here and I'll go to the Steam workshop and subscribe to more railcar props. And I came back with a set of Beasquacklehazen's American freight car props. I will insist on checking it out as he has an amazing collection of those. I must say that he has done a pretty amazing work on detailing every single car in that freight car pack. For the next few minutes, you'll just see me place these props and fill up the Railyard. Typically in a yard like this, you would find washers where they clean the locomotives, so this is what I'm trying to build over here, like a pass-through washing area where all the locomotives would get cleaned. Now the rail yard with only the freight terminals actually looks kind of weird because there are no buildings over here, so I decided that I'll add actually a few of these warehouses which are actually gonna look like a huge I don't know what to call it exactly, a loading facility where all the trains get loaded with the goods. I actually removed these large warehouses and placed a few smaller ones because this covered more than half of my rail yard and most of the props would get covered under the buildings and there would be no point of me placing so many of those previously. I actually copied a few of those trains which I made with props to increase the density of the yard a bit because those yards are actually much more denser than what I've made. I actually tried making that again, but I left it because it was taking a lot of space. And now I actually try to put these small warehouses, which is another attempt of me trying to make the Railyard look better. And I actually place these buildings which come with the freight terminal, and these buildings actually make it look like it's like a huge loading facility, and the trucks come out of those gates in the front. And I put these loading zone decals, actually I think these are decals in the front, and I place a few truck props in front of it to make it look like that. A few of those truck containers which you see me place right now are again by Avania. They are the similar containers which were there in the container pack, as they are grouped in the same kind of prop pack. If any one of you want to use any of these containers, you can actually go to the Steam collection of Codexity down in the description and subscribe to these containers. They are actually very amazing, and I would recommend you to use these. Again, the most satisfying part of this game, surface painting the entire thing, because I think mostly it's gonna be concrete itself and a few parts might be gravel. If anyone was wondering why I added those washer buildings here also, that was actually because I wanted to make it look like a loading tunnel the trains go through and come out from the other side. And the trains actually go inside and park over there, and then all the goods are loaded. And now you're seeing me just place a few of these goods props so that it gives this place a bit more of a Railyard feeling. So there are barrels of oils, there are bags of cement that I've just scattered around the Railyard. This is actually my last and final attempt to make the Railyard look better. These are the warehouses. These are the modular warehouses which are there on the Steam workshop, and they look pretty good when they are together, and over here they fit the Railyard pretty well. Now the trains might look like they are going straight into the walls of this thing, so that's the reason why I'm adding these washer buildings over here again. So it makes it look like a passage or a tunnel which is there, which gets the trains into the buildings. Also, I'm calling those tunnel things washer buildings because I don't know what those are actually called. So if anyone knows what they're actually called, hit me up. Here I actually used the brush tool to place more of these props so that I could scatter a lot of them in a much lesser time than individually placing every single one of them.
I think I need therapy or just some more whiskey. I can't seem to understand how you do this to me.
And the last thing which I'm doing to finish the Railyard is making parking for the people who work here, because every place needs parking and people won't come to work if there's not enough parking. And also providing all the main city services for the buildings and the Railyard to function properly.
When you're gone, I don't know what to say. When you're with me, I can't say anything anyway, so just believe me. Even if the words don't come out, they're here inside my head, stuck inside my mouth.
So I guess we're coming to the end of this episode. If you like my content and wish to see more, please do subscribe to my channel. And if there's something you want me to improve in, whether it's my voiceover or content, please feel free to write it down in the comments or get in touch with me on Instagram or Twitter. So this is it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.